Third Wall Street is a new emerging global capital markets formation and structured trifactor financial hub at the U.S. Third Border in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean and Latin America. The new Third Wall Street is the home of the Alexander Hamilton Financial Center and named in honor of Alexander Hamilton, an American founding father, first U.S. Treasury Secretary, and architect of the U.S. financial system and modern America. Third Wall Street is located in a U.S. National Heritage Area, Opportunity Zone, and the boyhood home of Alexander Hamilton in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Island, connecting three financial hubs in the Americas by way of new innovative financial technology and markets: New York Wall Street South, Brickell Avenue, Miami, and Third Wall Street in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, and established the new Caribbean America's Single Economy Zone, developed by SETI Case Capital Markets. Third Wall Street will transform financial markets, improving access to capital worldwide. Visit www.thirdwallstreet.com to learn more.
All right. Here we are. Hey, here's my buddy Chris.
Wow.
How are you doing today?
Hey, Greg, I got to tell you, I am more excited about today's show than I've been about any of our shows recently. I'm not really sure why, but I'm really excited.
Well, I tell you, and I'm going to welcome our audience back to the big picture. And we're going to talk about this. This is very, very important. I want you to imagine one app that replaces your bank, your credit card, and your investment broker. And that's not science fiction. It's the vision that Coinbase has and is actively building right now with what they call a crypto super app. And here's why this conversation matters today. Banks still charge about 2 to 3% fees on transactions that are really just bits of data. And meanwhile, crypto rails are already proving that they can move money faster and cheaper across borders. And the future isn't decades away, it is right now. But here's the bigger question. Could the Caribbean actually leapfrog the mainland United States in this shift? Through the financial hub that we are building with SETI Case in St. Croix, we may have the chance to move faster than legacy banks weighed down by old systems that we've talked about on this show in the past. So let's start at the top, Chris. What exactly is a super app in finance, and how is it different from the banking apps that we already have on our phones?
Well, you know, Grant, this is a topic that I'm really excited about because the CEO of Coinbase did a big announcement just this past week about this super app. And look, it's a bit marketing, right? I mean, just the idea, super app. I mean, how can that not attract your attention? You're a brand guy. Did they do a hell of a good job of branding on this or what?
Oh, we're talking about it, right? The whole point is get people talking about it, keep people doing the comparison, doing it. You know, it's you build the brand in the mind of your target audience. That is exactly right.
Right. And they did it because this is one of the big talks right now. And I will say, it's an announcement, it's marketing, it's being worked on, it's a little premature. Okay? In other words, you can't go today and use the super app.
Right.
Okay? But
exactly.
It doesn't mean that in the next few short months, we're not going to see this. And look, you know, in fairness to everyone else in the industry, Coinbase isn't the only one doing this. There's a number of other companies that are working on similar things, but Coinbase is certainly one of the biggest. It's certainly the most important crypto exchange in the United States, right? And that carries a lot of weight, which is why an announcement from Coinbase's CEO about the super app carries a lot of weight, right? So to touch on your other question, can the Caribbean jump ahead of all the legacy? And the answer there is yes and no, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, in the respect that there isn't as much of that legacy that ties down a lot of the big banks and a lot of our big institutions where they have in some cases, software that's running these institutions from the last century. Does that sound old enough to you? Right?
Yeah.
We're not tied to those things. But at the end of the day, one of the issues in general has been access to the global banking system. Caribbean has had an issue with that. And it's a step-by-step process to get past that. And to me, it really needs to be more hand in hand rather than I'm jumping ahead of you or jumping ahead of you, right?
Yep.
And
yep.
the good news is that's easily attainable, and I think it's in the best interest of everyone, and they're looking to do that, right? So now when you talk about the super app itself, okay, so what is the super app, right? What's super about it? Well, what's super about it, right, is a couple of things. I mean, first of all, look, all of these things are software, right? It's all tech. And what you have to understand and remember about tech is tech doesn't care, right? It doesn't care who it helps, who it doesn't help. It doesn't care if it's ahead of somebody or it's not ahead of somebody. It doesn't care if it's $1 or $1 million. You know what I mean? Tech doesn't care. It just works, right?
Yeah.
And it's neutral to all these things. So what has happened over the years, our banks have come in and said, well, certain kind of payments are low value payments. Certain kind of payments are high value payments. Again, the tech doesn't care how many zeros are there. But banks do that because a couple of things. One, they charge you differently based on that. And again, the tech works the same. The cost inside the bank is the same, whether it's $1 or $1 million they're moving. But they're able to charge you at different rates because they've done these things. The other thing, and by the way, I get that because it's business, right? I get that.
Yeah.
Okay. The second part of it is what bothers me more because they do this also to control your ability to use your money. And that one is the one that really bothers me, right? Because look, they don't want you to have the ability to take all your money out and move it to another bank
that quickly. Yeah.
What they want to do, I mean, the tech doesn't care. Again, if you transfer $1 or $1 million, tech doesn't care. But what they want to do is they want to protect us from moving too much money at a time where it could possibly harm us. It could be fraud. I mean, there's a number of scare tactics that I think that they use successfully to be able to control what we do. And the example we've used on the show before, Grant, is you go to the ATM, right? You could have $10,000 in your checking account, but when you put your card in, the bank says, oh no, your limit 24 hours, $800. Oh, I called the bank, I say, but I have $10,000 in my account. Why can't I have my money? Oh, sir, so glad that you asked because we're such a good bank and we care about you so much and we want to protect you from somebody being able to take too much money out of your account through fraud or through, I don't know, they steal your card, guess your PIN, figure it all out and take your money. Okay. Here's the truth. the FDIC has mandated to the banks that if somebody illegally accesses your account through the ATM, the bank is responsible for that money. So what the bank in effect has done is reduce their liability to a maximum, of $800 by saying that's your daily limit. Sorry, but sir, this is for your protection because we care about you. Yeah, no. Not only banks, but to me, almost any time tells me that this is for your benefit. I mean, immediately it translates in my mind is, oh no, it's for their benefit. And that's what's happening. So when we start talking about a super app, what we're talking about is being able to get past a lot of these artificial barriers that are put in place by the current financial system. Okay, and here's another one that the super app will take care of. Okay, look, it's Saturday. I want to send my friend some money. I got to wait till Monday morning, banking hours. Okay, it's 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. You know, I want to pay for something. Nope, sorry. Banking hours. And we all know what banking hours are, right? 9 to 5. That's it. 9 to 5. Okay, yeah. We start talking about crypto and the crypto rails 24/7, 365. Okay, this is why the most, super app, great thing, great marketing, but what is really the buzzwords in the industries today is stable coins. Mm-hmm. And that's because with stable coins, you can send any amount at any time, anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it sounds so basic, but in our financial system, in our financial world, in the world that the banks have put us in today, you can't do it.
You know, what you're bringing up some really good points, Chris, is that, first of all, what is the super app? The one platform that combines everything, whether it's payments, your savings, your lending, your credit, your investing. And we've seen that work. See, that's what you're alluding to. It's already happening like in Asia, like with apps like WeChat. That's what they have over in Asia. And then they have Alipay, A-L-I-P-A-Y. Look it up. They're already doing this. And Coinbase just wants to replicate that model, but with crypto at the core. That's what they're looking at. And you just brought up now that when you move to stablecoin, now you've got a fiat backing of what's happening. And I love how you just said, kind of weighing out the difference. This is not new, but when you're working with a limited traditional banking system that has time constraints, and they also have to back the currency that's there, they have to hold so much currency that they're able to make sure that they have available in case anything happens. So it's guaranteed. In the crypto world, it's a little different, So when you start thinking about what Armstrong and this is what I read in this article that came out, I think yesterday or the day before, he says he's criticizing these credit cards. He's saying 2 to 3% fees on a lot of these transactions are just bits of data. They're just bits of data over the internet, and you brought up the crypto rails, right? Now, here's my question to you is that can these actual crypto rails eliminate those costs?
Well, great. Let me back up one thing because you brought up two very good systems, which is the WeChat Pay and the Alipay.
Yeah.
Okay. They are not super apps today. Let me make that clear.
Okay.
Okay. And one of the reasons is that there is restrictions on the use of crypto there. There's the restrictions on how much money a Chinese citizen can send outside of the country. And the restriction, according to the Chinese government, is $50,000 US. That's the limit per year that a Chinese citizen can legally send outside the country in cash, right? So, again, come back to what I said. Tech doesn't care, right? The restriction of 50,000 is not a tech restriction.
No,
right? It's a restriction by
an institutional restriction
by man. Yeah. Okay, it's almost like talking about nature there's no restrictions in nature, and then man comes and puts all kinds of restrictions on all kinds of things for all kinds of benefits to him personally, right? And this is the same situation. So that's the first I want to come out, let you know, is that you just don't have your super app status, because to me, and based on what the CEO of Coinbase said, the super app will cover everything.
Whether it's $1
everywhere
million, you're moving $1 million of business, or you're moving, $100 of business, doesn't matter.
Right. And I would put, there's only one thing that does matter, is the word legally, right? I mean, you can't, they're not going to let you move in the super app, money that you stole from somebody else if they know about it, right? I mean,
yeah, right. Legal. Right. Exactly.
If you're that good, right. So that's kind of a big thing there, is that the restrictions, again, that what I have suffered through and that still are in place, that my hope for the super app will overcome are all these restrictions on, how much we can send, when we can send it, to who we can send it, for what we can send.
Hey, Chris, we got to go to our break, right? We're going to go to our break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to continue on this conversation, because we're getting into kind of the teeth and the meat of this. We kind of define what the super app really is and what the difference is between the traditional app that's happening now in banking and what the super app is proposing to do. As you said, some of it is hype, some of it is something that we can really utilize when it comes to volume. So we're going to unpack that even more when we come back. We'll be right back.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaugh, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaugh explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
amazing. Walking around different companies who participated in Money 2020 was really good. Seeing different kinds of products, different innovations that they are presenting to the financial sector.
I come from a cybersecurity company, so we're not fintech, but no, it's a massive event. It's really good. We normally go for Black Hat, GITEX, say JSEC. It's the first time I actually come into a fintech event, and no, it's very good. It's very good. So it's worth coming.
Overall, it was very nice experience, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. And of course, we'd like to see it in the future.
Hey, we are back, Chris, and we're having a great conversation on this whole super app thing.
Grant, can I stop you for a second, Grant?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I stop you just for a second? Okay, because I want to make a really big announcement that actually it's two announcements, one for each of us.
Yeah.
Okay, and the first one is I absolutely and sincerely want to congratulate you, Grant, on your book. I want everyone to know about this book, First Light Authentic Leadership Blueprint. It's on Amazon. Go look for it, go get it, and get the value out of it. Grant, well done. Second thing is,
I want to thank you for that. I can't help but good free advertisement, right? No, but that's good. It is a great book. If you're interested in leadership, you want to see what it takes for you to get out of your own way and move forward. Pick up this book, read through it. It is a field manual for your career and business development. So thank you for saying that, Chris. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and let me just tell you, you would be getting that advice from the best. This guy right here.
This guy's been reading out of my brand book here. No, that's wonderful.
I'm looking to learn, Grant.
Yeah, you've been learning very well. I mean, you're doing some great things yourself, financial IT. You got your publication coming out. You've been doing it very, very strong. You have very good readership. I really like what you do. And you're very knowledgeable. And this is why people tune into our show, because we're talking about something that's very cutting edge around this super app and what it is and what it isn't. You talked about volume, how to be able to move money at any time of day. That's not a technological inability to do that. You can always do that, but the regulations come in from institutions and governments, and so they want to be able to limit some of that stuff because they want to maintain certain control. There's another flip on that, and that is the fee structure, and that's what I talked about before we went to break. I want you to break that down because these credit cards, obviously, right now, I think credit cards at 30%. I mean, they charge just a ridiculous amount of interest, and then they're saying 2 to 3% fees just on just basic fees. And so everybody knows that the banks fees a fee for everything. Can these crypto rails really eliminate some of those costs?
Well, Grant, and just to add another shameless plug here first, is that yesterday we're very pleased to say we released our newest issue of Financial IT magazine, which you can see at www.financialit.net. And there's a lot of really interesting things. There's also in the commercials you saw, there was a little commercial of the event I was at last week, which was Money 2020 Middle East, which was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Quite an exceptional event. And I'm just going to take just another second to say, next week starts what is truly my most favorite event of the year. In fact, I wrote an article years ago saying it's my Super Bowl of the financial community, which is called Sibos. It's the Swift which is all the banking, the movement of money organizations, their annual event. It's the biggest international banking event of the year. Next week will be in Frankfurt, and I will be coming to you live on the floor of Sibos in Frankfurt. Okay, so thank you. So now those important questions you just brought up, which are really significant here. Okay, so first, credit cards, more and more drive me crazy. I got an advertisement just the other day, and I know a lot of people, everyone gets these advertisements all the time, right? But very few of the people look at the back, where by law they have to tell you this credit card, the interest rate was 34.9%. It's the highest I've ever seen. Okay,
right.
I mean, I know loan sharks that charge cheaper. I mean,
right.
How can this be legally allowed? People don't understand that 34.9%, not just interest, compound interest. How much money that means. It's incredible. And most people look at it and say, well, there's only one question. What's the monthly payment? Oh, I can afford that.
No.
But then you look further, Grant, because it doesn't stop there, Grant. 34.9%, you think it's bad. Then you look a little further. $100 fee, annual fee, right? Charged in advance. So, hey, guess what? We're going to give you a credit card with a $500 credit line, except you only start off with $400 because we're already deducting the $100 fee that you're. And
wow,
if you don't pay that right away, you're going to pay 34.9% on that yearly fee also.
Oh,
right?
Hey, on the fee.
And then you look at things, and then you look at these things like, okay, if you're late on a payment, it's $39 as the charge for a late payment. And then if you don't pay that right away, 4.9% compounded interest, daily compounded interest on that $39. You don't really understand how governments, they can just say that this is within the legal bounds. I mean, today, if you have a credit card under 20%, first of all, it means you got it years ago.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible almost to get something like that now. And I mean,
I think we just lost Chris for some odd reason. He popped out of the studio, but we'll continue what he's talking about here. And that is this incredible what some of these credit card companies can charge. And it can be a lot of money. And you really got to look at these things. But can they really, will crypto solve some of that? And I know those fees, they originate from some legacy infrastructure. There's settlement networks, they call them. There's fraud systems. There's a lot of intermediaries that are out there that you're paying for all this stuff. I don't know what those fees really come out to. I know 34% is just, that is the extreme on these credit cards. Not all of them are like that, some of them, but still, even at 20%, 24%, all these things cost money. But if blockchain rails cut out most of that, so they take out things like the fraud systems and the settlement networks and these intermediaries, that they don't have to go through that, then what do you have? Now, but what, Visa, MasterCard, they add is what they call trust and insurance. You're paying for that. That's just part of the premium that you want to look for and that you're used to. And that's what Visa, MasterCard, bring to you. But if these crypto super apps can replicate that safety layer, that's the thing. Can they have the same kind of guarantees that are out there in their offer? So if their offer now has that guarantee and that you have that layer, I think these fees could definitely come down, because you just don't have all of that in the same problems that you had before. So we'll see what that looks like. I don't know, Chris, this is what I'm saying, is that I think that these fees just aren't in the crypto world, because you don't have all these other things, the fraud systems that they're paying for, the settlement networks, these intermediaries. And if you can get the same kind of trust factor that Visa and MasterCard has, if you can replicate that, those fees could shrink dramatically. What do you think?
Well, great. First, I want to apologize. That was an interruption from the Banking Association of the World because they didn't want me to say, and they don't want the people to hear what I'm talking about. Okay, so I apologize. but yes, because even when you talk about sending payments, okay, like you said earlier, Grant, it's data, and data runs on rails, and it is so. It costs nothing because once you put that infrastructure in, and it's been in place for a long time, you know, it's like the telephone lines. It's like, you know, satellites up in the sky. The cost is getting them up there, right? The cost is putting cable everywhere, right? Those are the costs. But once that's amortized, the actual movement of the information across the different platforms, you know, is fractions of a penny, really. Okay, but they are what are commonly known in the industry as fee generators. All right, and that's where these things come in. Now, crypto comes in and upsets a lot of this, and really, you flips a lot of this on its head because there aren't the same fees that are being charged. I've got an issue with a lot of the exchanges for them because the fees that they're charging you to convert your crypto into dollars, you know, are like bank fees. The actual fee for moving the money, what we call in crypto the gas fee, is you know, pennies, you know, 30 cents, 60 cents, something in this range. Okay, you know, so it really makes such a big difference when you move these things. And I think one of the things that's missing right now, we talk, and good things as I said about Coinbase before, I've got a couple of negative things to say, is they basically have close to a monopoly in the U.S. when you talk about being legally able to buy and sell crypto. And I think that contributes to the structure. And I think with competition.
So Chris, we got to go to a break. We're going to come back. We're going to finish that thought. We're going to come right back because we're on to something really big because we've got to get a hold of these fees. And this becomes a real advantage for people when they look at why would I want to use this kind of platform for my money. So let's go to break and we'll be right back.
Third Wall Street is a new emerging global capital markets formation and structured trifactor financial hub at the U.S. third border in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean and Latin America. The new Third Wall Street is the home of the Alexander Hamilton Financial Center and named in honor of Alexander Hamilton, an American founding father, first U.S. Treasury Secretary, and architect of the U.S. financial system and modern America. Third Wall Street is located in a U.S. National Heritage Area, Opportunity Zone, and the boyhood home of Alexander Hamilton in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Island, connecting 3 financial hubs in the Americas by way of new innovative financial technology and markets: New York Wall Street South, Brickell Avenue, Miami, and Third Wall Street in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, and established the new Caribbean Americas Single Economy Zone, developed by SETI Case Capital Markets. Third Wall Street will transform financial markets, improving access to capital worldwide. Visit www.thirdwallstreet.com to learn more.
حياكم الله في شركة كريات ميديا. ناخذكم في جولة تصوير هنا في ماني 2020 اكزيبيشن موجودين هنا في الرياض 2025. حياكم الله.
The difference between influence and legacy, it's the platform that carries your voice. You're not visible because you lack talent. You're visible because your brand doesn't speak. I've built 5-star BD&M to change that. Most leaders have the expertise, but not the presence, the vision, but not the vehicle. Across 3 cities, one brand is helping leaders rise above the noise. Here in the heart of Omaha, strategy isn't left to chance. It's engineered with precision. In Omaha, we engineered your executive brand, AI-powered, data-driven, precise. TISA went from a local nonprofit to a national speaker in 90 days. We don't guess your brand strategy, we built it. On the shores of St. Croix, your brand takes on depth and meaning, shaped through curated retreats and legacy experiences. In St. Croix, strategy becomes soul. Our retreats don't just refine your message, they rediscover your mission. One founder rewrote his entire company story here. Funding followed 30 days later. This is where leaders remember who they were meant to be. In Vibrant Miami, momentum meets amplification, transforming your voice into a movement. In Miami, your brand becomes a movement. Business development accelerators, audience building. Joy came with an old website and an outdated company name, but she left with 5,000 followers and a waiting list. This is where you scale with soul. 3 cities, 1 mission, your legacy ignited. It started with a thread. Let's pull it together. Stop blending and start leading. 5-star BDM, where legacy is engineered, embodied, and ignited. Visit 5starbdm.com and book your brand audit today.
Reimagine a world where the Caribbean is seamlessly connected, where our people, our cultures, and our economies move freely across the islands. This is Connect Caribbean, more than a ferry service. It's the heartbeat of a new era, an era where economic opportunities expand, where trade flows freely across our seas, and cultural exchange flourishes. We are linking businesses, empowering communities, and reigniting the hope for a truly integrated Caribbean. Together, we're shaping a brighter, more unified future for the Caribbean. Connect Caribbean, connecting our islands, our people, our future.
All right, there we go. There we go. Chris, we are back. We've got the audience stoked. They said, all right, I understand volume. I think I understand the fees that can be reduced if, as we get into this. But, there's this thing about regulations that are out there now. We've seen the Genius Act go on that's been passed by Congress here in the mainland United States. It's gaining a lot of traction. You got the MICA or the MICA over there in Europe. So regulatory clarity and for this kind of vision that Coinbase has put out there, I think is very, very important. So let's talk about regulation. What do you think about that? Ooh. I think Chris has just popped out of our studio. So I want to continue along this thought line around the regulation that is, I think, is going to affect these markets, because without that kind of clarity, the innovation will collapse. You've got to have that. You've got to have that uniformity, and you've got to have an agreed upon protocol that comes across. So like in Europe, they built the MICA or the MICA to unify the EU market. But it's already showing cracks with an uneven rollout. That's that clarity that's so important. In America, we have the Genius Act. We have a SHOT Act clarity. It's starting to gain some traction. And I think for SETI case, that regulation is an opportunity, especially when we see a new startup brand in St. Croix, which SETI case as a regulated bridge that can innovate safely across these networks as we build out. But it's got to show, that it can stand up to the scrutiny that's taking place. So, Chris, I'm glad you're back, because this is what we're talking about. Because the regulatory body, when we're talking about a super app, we're talking about any of these things we've talked about. We've talked about the volume that you can, in that world, in the super app world, it's on 24/7. It's like Vegas, right? It's 24/7, non-stop, no on, no off. Then we talk about the fee structure. Well, like I said, it's already been built. The infrastructure highway, we used to call the internet that, right? The information highway, people remember that. It's built. So it's already built. So those fees should come down unless you're just gouging. And we talked about a little bit that. I think these credit card companies are gouging people. People need money to transact. You're charging the cost of money is just ridiculous in the credit card world that you described at 35% of some of these. It's just, it's ridiculous from a loan shark, perspective, is pretty bad. But that can be severely reduced. But the regulatory body, the regulation that is controlled by a lot of these entities, that's a whole nother animal. What do you think about that regulatory system?
I mean, look, the regulatory system in its essence is put in place truly to protect us. Mm-hmm. In its actual application, it has had some negative effects, right? And a lot of the negative effects that it has, it just cannot keep up to the speed of innovation and technology, right? This is more what it is. And as a result, it holds things back. As a result, it ends up costing us more. As a result, we end up not being able to take advantage of things that are available, right?
Oh, he's popped out. Chris is having some internet problems as we speak. But I think what he's talking about as we get into this is that Coinbase has some integrated, DeFi protocols. I think that's important. If you've heard of the word Morpho, they offer pretty high yields, high as like 10%, almost closer to 11% on the USDC, which is very, very important. And that's massive compared to the banks paying only 1%. So you got 10% over here, you got 1% over there. As people start to move money across these rails that we've talked about, which way you're going to go? You're going to go the one that has the highest yield. So 10%, 11% compared to 1%. That shows where the financial markets are tending toward. So you look at that protocol, like I talked about Morpho. Please look it up. It's MORPHO. Look it up. It's massive when you compare it to what the banks are actually paying. That's very innovative. That's a loophole maybe the loop, the regulators may close, maybe they won't. So when you think about that and how SEDI can play in that yield gap is too big to ignore. So when we think about the Caribbean angle and we think about SEDI and how they can position itself and St. Croix as a hub where high yield innovation can meet regulatory trust, you've got to have that. And that's where that US backed mainland is there. We're talking stable coins, or Chris, we definitely want to talk about stable coins, where it plays. You've got to understand the playing field and how this can work so we can give investors exactly what they want. They want compliance frameworks with regulators. Truly, they demand that. So this is how we lean into where stable coins gives that stability and that trust factor. Remember we talked about earlier, why do people like Visa? Why do they like MasterCard? Because it gives them safety and it gives them trust. If you can get safety and trust in your financial system, utilizing these super apps, as Coinbase have talked about, and SEDI can then position itself as a hub. And as I talked about this high yield innovation, and I talked about Morpho, 10%, and the banks are playing 1% for those DeFi protocols. This is very important. And then the stable coins becomes that central to that model. So I think they may, in that where they compete with the banks, or they can maybe simplify the system. I'm not sure how it's going to completely, pan out. I'm gonna bring Chris back on because I know he's like, okay. Now what I've talked about while you were taking a little small break there was where all this comes together in this regulatory body. If you can establish trust on these crypto rails, same trust that you have with Visa and MasterCard, and then you have these protocols that in these high yield innovation, talked about Morpho, they're paying 10%, 11%. The banks are giving you 1%. That's a huge gap. So if you can establish that type of trust in financial hub, it gives a creative advantage if you can move now. Speed to market is very, very important. I think stablecoin gives that kind of advantage as it begins to roll out from a regulatory standpoint. What do you think about that?
You see, first I will say that as far as Visa and MasterCard have gone, they've already proven to me for many years I can't trust them. Right? They're going to take advantage of me. They're going to take advantage of me every chance they can.
Wow.
When it comes to crypto, I don't have to trust crypto because it's on the blockchain. Okay? So the security, the immutability of transaction is built in. I don't depend on anybody else to do anything, right? So this is an important part. Now, I will tell you right now, the banks are moving more quickly in this field of stablecoin than I've ever seen the banks move at any other time, except for closing up their vaults to make sure you can't get money out very quickly. Okay? But with stablecoin,
Chris has got an unstable internet today. I see that. But we're going to expand on what he's talking about. I think he hit on a very important point. That he can't trust MasterCard and Visa, or he can trust them to do what they've always done, and that's to overcharge for their services. They've got you by, basically a monopoly in certain aspects. So no one's regulating them to scale back on their fees. So you're seeing these credit cards are coming out at 34%. The cost of money has skyrocketed, and that creates innovation. Some people are like, hey, I want to get out of this. And when he said, which really opened my eyes, is that you don't have to worry about trust on the blockchain because it's a ledger. It's already built in. It's already there. You already have the system of trust that's in the crypto ecosystem and how it's built out. So if you have that, your fees should come down. That's what we're talking about. We first, in this whole show, we talked about volume, that it's a 24/7 show, There's no limitations when it comes to that, other than self-imposed limitations, right? With some of these institutions. And then you have fee structure. Like, so we see these fees, and this is important. The cost of money is very, very important to understand, right? So if my cost is extremely low by utilizing this crypto type financial system as opposed to the traditional fiat system, which way is the market going to move? It's absolutely going to move in direction that gives them the most bang for their buck. So now we're just building out. It's almost like, all right, it's a race to build out the rail system. Remember, back in the 1800s, there's a race to build out the train system from the East Coast to the West Coast to unite the nation. I see this kind of happening now in the crypto world, where we are uniting all these systems together to then build this new infrastructure that's going to be able to transact money at scale and at speed, and with a trust factor that's already built in for all parties, not just for a few parties. I think the old system definitely was slided to the banks. How else can you get someone who's has an offer of 35% on a credit card and actually have a business out of it when you already said yourself that's illegal? They call that loan sharking. It's illegal to do that, but it's legal in this system. So where is the crowd going to move toward? You're not going to sit there and pay 34% of $500. That's ridiculous, right? Right? When you can go to another world where, you know what? If I can do real banking, I can get credit on crypto systems. I can do my savings on in this world. I can get investments in this system. And it's a trusted system, and it's backed by everything that we call assets in the system. This is a game-changing moment, right? And this is why you're seeing these governments like the U.S. with their Genius Act and stable coins, the EU, there to say, hey, this is going to happen. Who's the loser in that? And I think it's the traditional banking system. Chris, you're back. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so Grant, to follow on to that, I want to, go over. There's been quite a few announcements that have been made in just the last week or two that I think are important to this conversation. I mean, one is you have the agreement between the U.S. and the UK to develop crypto regulations, right? And to me, I look at that more as the UK trying to make sure they don't fall behind. I mean, everybody has always thought of London as a financial capital, and I think it's, in my opinion, it's a bit overvalued, right? It's not really the financial capital that we think about from years ago. I mean, let's face it, the British pound was the dominant currency for a couple of hundred years. Now it's in 5th place, maybe, after the US dollar, the euro, the yen, the renminbi, right? 5th place. Okay, so it's not quite the same. So that was an important announcement. Here's one you should be listening to if you're into crypto. The US IRS has made an announcement about some changes in crypto tax laws, right? And your reporting. Okay, so first, all exchanges like Coinbase are required to report the sale and exchange of digital assets. There's a new form that the IRS is making them use that will standardize the gross amounts. In other words, if you, over the year, sell $50,000 worth of crypto, that's what will get reported, okay? Now, since that's only gross amounts, you're going to be relied on to provide your own records of what's called the cost basis, which really means what you pay for it. Because the taxes on crypto are just like on stocks. It's based on your net gain or your profit on what. So if you bought at 100, it goes up to 10, right? So you have to now keep records for your cost basis on that. And you have to include both cost bases and gross proceedings in your reporting. And then in 2027, beginning in January 1st, right, People that are not reporting right are going to be subject to IRS calls backup withholding tax at a flat rate of 24%. Okay, so all pretty interesting stuff. And for me, this is we talked about it before, Grant. The U.S. government has to change these things, and I know the current administration has put forward a bunch of things to take off the taxes of crypto, particularly those cryptos that act, behave, and are used as money, because there's no taxes on money, right? But the U.S. government, right, on one side, if you use Bitcoin as a method to money launder, you go to jail. But if you make a profit on Bitcoin, you pay a tax. So it's a commodity for taxes, but it's a currency which in jail. You can't have it both ways. That has to change. Okay. Now a little bit more interesting news. I don't know if you saw, Grant, but NVIDIA, right, largest company, the big semiconductor manufacturer, has signed an agreement with ChatGPT, $100 billion agreement to build together, with $10 billion upfront already. The stock, NVIDIA, jumped 4% just on the announcement of that. Right? Pretty significant. Where it's going to go, hard to say right now. Those guys, but listen, both sides, they're pretty smart. So if you're talking about new chips specifically for enhancing ChatGPT functions, who knows where that can go. Pretty dynamic, pretty interesting stuff. Here's the other big one, is that the SEC has approved two things for us. One, that the process to bring new ETFs, exchange traded funds of cryptocurrencies, down from 240 days or more down to 75 days to get approved. And more importantly, is that you just need to file one set of documents. Before, the exchange had to file documents, the fund had to file documents, and there was a lot of, missed opportunities back and forth and extra things. Now, where this also plays in is the second SEC announcement, which...
Oh, wow. Getting all these different announcements, and Chris has popped off. But you've got to do your due diligence, do your research. The financial world is changing rapidly. You thought the technology world is changing. The fintech world, we're going to merge these two worlds together, the finance and technology layers in our world. The entire globe is changing rapidly. This is an opportunity to get involved and look at where you sit in relation to these changes and start to look at how you can take advantage of this. And we talked about smaller markets, like in the U.S. Virgin Islands. You have to understand that these smaller markets don't carry the legacy baggage of these big banks. So they're swifter, they're quicker, they're faster. And in the Caribbean, where remittances are very expensive and currencies are very fragmented, a super app can be transformative. And with SEDICAE, St. Croix has a chance to be the regional sandbox that aligns the U.S. standards with solving these Caribbean challenges. So important. So I want to make sure that you take away from today. I want you to do your due diligence, do your research. Don't just listen to what I am saying or listen to what Chris is saying. Do your own due diligence. You have access to so much information, as Chris alluded to in ChatGPT, which is an AI engine. There's many others. There's Claude, there's Gemini, these other, but this aggregates all the information in the world. You can get real-time information to help you understand where you sit in relation to these market shifts in finance and in technology. It's so important. So we've got to close. And as we close, we're going to come back because we're going to still define some of these things. So I want to thank you again for being on the show, Chris. We're going to come back next week. We're going to unpack some more around this because we've got to understand where we sit in relation to these things to take advantage of these market shifts in finance and technology.
You know, Grant, somebody doesn't like the things I'm saying, and that's all the more reason everyone should watch.
And get your new volume on the Finance IT that's coming out. Go ahead and go to Financial IT, and you'll see the latest. And you've got a lot of good information out there. Hopefully, we'll see you out there in Frankfurt, Germany real soon. Take care.
Hey, Amazon, First Light, get the blueprint.
Love it.
Third Wall Street is a new emerging global capital markets formation and structured trifactor financial hub at the U.S. third border in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean and Latin America. The new Third Wall Street is the home of the Alexander Hamilton Financial Center and named in honor of Alexander Hamilton, an American founding father, first U.S. Treasury Secretary, and architect of the U.S. financial system and modern America. Third Wall Street is located in a U.S. National Heritage Area, Opportunity Zone, and the boyhood home of Alexander Hamilton in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Island, connecting 3 financial hubs in the Americas by way of new innovative financial technology and markets: New York Wall Street South, Brickell Avenue, Miami, and Third Wall Street in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, and established the new Caribbean America's Single Economy Zone, developed by SETI Case Capital Markets. Third Wall Street will transform financial markets, improving access to capital worldwide. Visit www.thirdwallstreet.com to learn more.